Hello everyone, welcome to another solution video. This time we're going to just look at the first section of our for loops worksheet. Before I begin, I just want to talk about a little bit about the for loop. Once again, it is formatted like so. So we're going to use the keyword for. We're going to create an iterating variable to represent each item in our sequence. It's going to go in order, starting from the beginning and the end. So on the first iteration, that iterating variable is going to represent the first item. And after that, the second item. Now, here's a little question I want to answer is that do I need to use that iterating variable anywhere inside my code block for my for loop? The answer is no, it depends. Let's say you just wanted a finite loop that loops a certain number of times, then you don't need to use that variable. You just let it loop in a range from 1 to 10, let's say, and it'll just run that many times, right? It's really dependent. Most of the time, you are using that iterating variable for every iteration to see what happens. Okay? And the sequence, it can be a result of a range function, it could be a string, and it could be a list. For both string and list, those are two future units that we'll be working on. So right now, I wouldn't worry too much about that. So I would focus on the use of range and maybe looping through strings as well. Speaking of lists, though, I do want to go through an example code. In here, I have a for loop. The iterating variable I, this is the only case where we get to use single letter variables. And here we go. We're going to say, well, for this iterating variable called I, inside a sequence of a list 4, 2, 7, 5, 6, I'm going to print I. On the first iteration, it prints out 4, then 2, then 7, then 5, then 6, then 8. Then we check again. There's nothing left in the list. So it stops the loop, and that's the end of our. Let's talk about the range function. There are three versions of the range function. If you have range of x, as in we just give a single parameter to our range function, it will always start at 0 and go up towards x and never include the x. So if x was smaller than 0, your program would crash. It wouldn't work. It would be an error, or it wouldn't crash actually. Range would output a empty of numbers. So nothing. There will be nothing inside. All right, let's talk about range of A and B. A should be smaller than B. If not, once again, you're going to get an empty sequence. So if A is smaller than B, we're going to create a range of integers starting at A, going up to B by one value, and it will never include. Next, you want to go from a smaller value of A all the way to a larger value of B, and you want to take this many steps. Now we get to skip some values or go up by a certain value. And this value has to be set to a value. It can't be changing at every time. It needs to be a certain set value. And we're going to look at some examples below right now. So in this exercise, I wrote a whole bunch of range function with their parameters built in. And we're going to see what kind of sequence it creates. So for range of 10, we start at 0 because it only has one parameter and goes up all the way up to 9 and not including the 10. Here we have range of 10 to 20. I start at 10. That's my A value. It goes all the way up to 20 and not including that. Here, I'm starting at 10, going up to 20, going up by 2. So I go 10. The next number is now 12. 14, 16, 18. 18 plus 2 is 20. I can't include that last value, so I stop. I want to go backwards now. My A value is greater than my B value, but my step value changed. The step that I take on every iteration is -1. That means starting at 10, I subtract 1 every iteration. So we're going 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. You might be thinking, well, where's 1? Again, we never include that second value in our range. Let's do 3, 27, 3. We're starting at 3, going up by 3, and it stops at 24 because 24 plus 3 is 27. Again, don't include that last value. 10, 16. I can have different set variables added onto the range before I run that code. Range of A, B. A is 10, B is 16, and going up by 4, 10, 14. That's the end of that sequence. These two creates nothing, an empty sequence. 1 to 1. I'm starting at 1, I'm going towards 1, but I can't include 1, therefore, empty sequence. Starting at 10, going towards 4, a lower value, but on every iteration, if I don't specify, it goes up by 1 every time. I can't get to 10, 4, going up by 1 every time. Therefore, empty sequence. I'm going to go range, starting at a negative value to another negative value. But if you notice, negative 10 is less than negative 4. And we're going up by 1. So we're going to go negative 10, negative 9, negative 8, negative 7, negative 6, stop at negative. So just to end this video off, we can do for loops with sequences, right? We can use a for loop in a string. And this iterating variable C, it's going to represent every single character in that string, even the white spaces in between hello world 1234. We can also use a for loop in a predetermined list. So if this is my list, it's going to print out 1, 2, a string of blueberry, and output Boolean value of true. And lastly, once again, I want you to remember, every solution that we solve up until this point can be done with a while loop. We can also solve these with a for loop on certain scenarios where we have a finite sequence, where you know that the loop's going to end for sure. You're sure that we're going to loop a certain finite amount of time. Remember, while loop can solve all for loop problems, but not all for loop problems can solve while loop. Thank you for watching. Stay classy.